The wagon wheels crunched over frost-bitten earth, each turn grinding against the silence of the mountain valley. Elias Boone stood at the edge of his porch, arms folded, rifle propped against the wall. His eyes narrowed at the figure climbing down from the wagon, a woman, belly swollen beneath a faded gingham dress, her hand steady on the rail, as though she dared the ground itself to challenge her. "This ain't what I paid for," Elias muttered, voice gravel over stone. The driver tipped his hat, hurried with the horse team, and rattled away without a word, leaving dust and cold air between them. The woman straightened, brushed her palms against her dress, and looked him square in the face. "Name's Clara Mae," she said. "I'll be cooking for you." "You're carrying," Elias growled. "I asked for a cook, not a burden." Her eyes didn't flinch. They were storm gray, sharp as a hawk's wing. "A burden can't fry eggs nor bake bread, Mr. Boone. You'll eat better with me here, if you'll let me through that door." The wind pressed against the cabin, rattling its seams. Elias chewed the inside of his cheek, weighing the shape of her shoulders, the stubborn set of her jaw. The child she carried was near to term, yet she stood as if rooted to the earth itself. He spat into the dirt. "You'll earn it then," he said. Clara nodded once, gathering her bundle. She passed him without hesitation, the faint smell of wood smoke and dust clinging to her dress. Elias followed, boots heavy on the planks, half ready to send her back into the valley before her shadow stretched too long across his floor. Inside, the cabin bore the marks of years lived alone. Pelts tossed in corners, dust layering shelves, pots blackened from fire left too long untended. Clara set her bundle on the table, ran a hand across the scarred wood, and said, "First thing, this place needs scrubbing." Elias snorted. "First thing, you'll cook." From her bundle, she drew a skillet, worn but clean, and without another word struck flint against steel. Sparks kissed kindling, and soon the room filled with the warmth of fire he hadn't known since last winter. Elias lowered himself into the chair by the hearth, arms crossed, watching her move. Each motion was slow but certain, like someone who'd done these chores in kitchens long before fate pushed her here. The scent came first, onions sizzling, bacon crisping in fat. Then cornbread rising golden in the Dutch oven. Elias's stomach betrayed him with a growl. Clara heard it and smiled, faint but sure, as if she had already won some quiet victory. When she set the plate before him, the food steaming, Elias stared hard at her. "Don't mistake this for kindness," he said. Her gaze met his without wavering. "I wouldn't dare," she answered. Outside, the mountains stood like judges. Inside, something unspoken shifted in the silence between them, as if the bargain had already grown into something neither of them named. The broom scraped against the floorboards, each stroke dragging up years of dust. Elias slammed the door behind him, arms full of kindling, and scowled at the sight. "I told you not to fuss," he barked. "This is a cabin, not some parlor." Clara straightened, the swell of her belly shifting beneath her apron. "A man eats better in a place that don't smell of mildew," she said, brushing dust from her palms. "And so does a child." Elias dumped the wood by the hearth with a thud. "That child ain't mine." "No," Clara said, turning her back to him as she lifted the kettle. "But it will be born here, and the roof won't fall in on us while I'm breathing." The silence, after carried more weight than his rifle leaning by the door. Elias sank into his chair, jaw tight, eyes following her as she stirred the pot. The smell of stew filled the room. Venison he'd brought down, stretched by potatoes and carrots she'd coaxed from her bundle. Her humming threaded through the crackle of the fire, soft as prayer, steady as the heartbeat of the place itself. By morning, she had set a tin cup on the sill with wildflowers inside. Elias nearly threw them out, but caught himself. Instead, he muttered, "Won't keep the wolves away." "No," Clara said, tying her hair back with a strip of cloth. "But it'll remind us we're human." Days turned to weeks. She moved through the cabin like a force disguised as gentleness, shifting pelts, patching leaks, making order from neglect. Elias grumbled, yet he found himself watching. How her hands never trembled, how her steps never faltered, though she carried near to breaking. One night, The distant thunder of hooves rolled down the canyon. Elias rose quick, rifle in hand, eyes narrowing at shadows moving against the moonlight. He counted 3, no, 4, riders trailing near the tree line. Clara came to his side, one hand pressed to her belly, the other gripping the edge of the doorframe. "They'll come closer," she whispered. "You know him?" Elias asked, voice low. Her jaw tightened. "My husband owed men. They've been circling since he went to the ground." Elias cursed under his breath, the kind that carried heat. "You brought this to my door?" Clara's eyes flashed in the lamplight. "Trouble don't ask where you live, Mr. Boone. It just comes." For a long while they stood at the threshold, the night pressing in around them. The riders did not approach, only lingered before fading into the darkness. Still, the unease stayed. Later, when Elias pretended to sleep, the click of metal broke the silence. He opened one eye and saw Clara in the corner, his revolver in her grip. She tested the weight, thumb brushing the hammer, stance firm despite the curve of her belly. Her eyes were cold, not fearful, measuring, remembering. Elias shut his eyes before she turned. His heart pounded, not from anger, but from the dawning thought that this widow was not what she seemed. The dogs barked first, sharp and savage against the dawn. Elias was already on the porch, rifle raised, when 5 riders crested the ridge, dust trailing like smoke from their heels. The sun struck their guns, steel flashing cruel against the morning light. "Stay inside," he growled over his shoulder. Clara stepped past him anyway, one hand on the doorframe, the other pressed against her side. Her breath was steady, eyes fixed on the men drawing closer. The leader, Crowley, swung down from his saddle. He was a tall man, hat pulled low, a scar carving his cheek. His boots ground in the dirt as he walked forward, smiling without warmth. "Morning, Boone," he called. "You've got something of mine." Elias shifted his weight, finger resting against the trigger. "Ain't nothing here for you." Crowley's eyes slid past him, settling on Clara. He tipped his head. "There she is. Husband died owing me, and debts don't vanish with the body. She comes with us." The men behind him laughed, low and eager. Horses stamped the earth, restless. Elias spat into the dust. "She don't belong to you." Crowley grinned wider. "Don't belong to you either. What's a woman worth to a mountain ghost who ain't spoken to his own shadow in years? Step aside, Boone. Keep your hide." Clara's voice cut clean through the air. "I'm not going." Crowley chuckled, the sound like rattles in a dry gourd. "Lady, you don't get a say." He raised his hand, and the men began to spread. Elias's pulse hammered. He leveled the rifle. "That's far enough." But before the words cooled, Clara moved. She stepped off the porch, apron brushing against her swollen belly, and slid a hand into its folds. The revolver gleamed as she drew it free, steady as sunrise. Crowley's laughter rang loud. "You mean to scare me with that, girl? You can hardly carry yourself." Her stance did not waver. The barrel tracked him, unshaken. "I buried a husband," Clara said, voice sharp as flint. "Don't think I'll tremble burying the men who come for me." The air thickened, the silence tight as a noose. Elias glanced at her, at the calm fury etched into her face, and for the first time he understood. She wasn't waiting for his protection. She'd been ready all along. The outlaws shifted uneasily, their laughter fraying at the edges. Crowley's smirk faltered, just a breath, before he spat into the dirt. "You got fire, widow. Let's see if it burns." His hand twitched toward his gun. Elias's rifle rose higher, Clara's revolver locked in line, the morning sun glaring down on all of them. And the storyteller's voice, if one were listening close, might whisper, those men didn't know the legend they'd stirred awake that day. The first shot split the morning wide open. Crowley's pistol cleared leather, but Clara's revolver barked first. The bullet tore through his arm, spinning him into the dust. His scream broke the silence, and the world erupted. Gunfire roared. Elias fired from the porch, his rifle bucking against his shoulder. One rider pitched backward off his horse, boots tangling in stirrups as the animal screamed. Another charged forward, pistol flashing, but Clara's second shot found his chest. He crumpled where he stood, mouth still open around a curse. The air turned thick with smoke. Horses reared, dirt flying. Elias felt fire scorch across his shoulder as a bullet grazed him, knocking him against the doorframe. He gritted his teeth, steadying the rifle, sighting down another man. The crack rang out, and the outlaw folded like wet canvas. Through it all, Clara stood firm in the yard. Her apron snapped in the wind, her belly heavy, yet her arm did not waver. Each pull of the trigger came sure and measured, her face a mask of iron resolve. 2 men remained. One tried to circle wide, fear written plain in his eyes, but Clara cut him down with a shot that sent dust and blood rising together. The last, Crowley, dragged himself upright, cradling his ruined arm, his pistol trembling in his hand. "You ain't woman enough to finish this," he spat, teeth pink with blood. Clara leveled the revolver at him. The hammer clicked back, the sound louder than thunder. For a breath, the world held still. Then her arm lowered. "No," she said, voice steady as the mountains. "My child will be born into mercy, not vengeance." Crowley's eyes widened, caught between disbelief and shame. He staggered backward, stumbled to his horse, and rode off, clutching his wound, the sound of hooves fading into the canyons. Elias pressed a hand to his bleeding shoulder, staring at her. "Why let him go? He'll come back." Clara turned, the revolver still warm in her grip. "Maybe, but if he does, he'll remember the day a widow stood tall, and he'll remember the mercy that spared him. That'll weigh heavier than any bullet." Her knees buckled then, the weight of the fight and the child pressing her down. Elias caught her before she struck the ground. She was trembling, though her eyes still burned with that same fire. He held her close, blood from his wound mixing with the dust on her dress. For the first time in years, the mountain man's voice broke soft. "You've given me more than I ever paid for." Clara's lips curved faintly, a ghost of smile. "I only gave you supper. The rest was grace." The storyteller's voice would linger long after. "They say Elias Boone paid for a cook, but what he got was a woman who carried strength in her belly, fire in her hands, and grace sharper than any blade." And long after her child was born, folks still told the tale of the widow who stood unbroken in the yard and showed mercy where death was owed.